I mean, this is a federal raid. Y'all forgot, like the FBI raided 2 of these houses. Like this is something that has been set up for so long. This has to be planned for months, if not years.
Like, you can't be mad at an artist for wanting their art to be properly received.
Right, absolutely.
You can never be upset at that.
I can't remember another performer in recent memory like actually going and putting up a video being like, oh, I'm heartbroken, I wasn't chosen, and da-da-da-da. Like, what is that?
Hey, what's going on, guys, and welcome to a fresh episode of Billboard Unfiltered. Gentlemen,
Welcome back.
What's up?
thank you.
It feels like the season premiere or something. Everybody, like, now everybody's back. Everybody's on vacation.
Kind of like
doing
season 2, right?
different assignments. Yeah.
Well, I wish we were going to start the show on a very light note, but we're going to get into the trenches, into the mud.
You brought the negativity back with you.
Sadly, man.
Naturally.
I was on an island when I heard about this news right here. So, Mr. Sean P. Diddy Combs charged with sex trafficking and racketeering. Per Billboard.com, federal prosecutors on Tuesday unsealed a criminal indictment against Sean Diddy Combs over sweeping allegations of sexual abuse, accusing the once powerful rapper, producer, and music executive of running a racketeering conspiracy that included sex trafficking, forced labor, kidnapping, arson, and bribery. Mr. Combs tried to finagle his way out with bail, $50 million, got deaded, and he will be inside a jail until the start of his trial. Guys, we kind of saw this coming. I'm not gonna front. He saw it coming. That's why he came back to New York.
Yeah.
Just to do his little farewell tour.
That's what they.
If
you,
But
yeah,
also
Central
to,
Park
curry
sunbathing.
favor with
Yeah.
the court and to say, look, we're not running. We came back.
Passport surrendered.
Yeah,
all this kind of.
his legal team
Yeah.
was like, he surrendered his passport already. We're playing ball. Please don't lock us up.
I agree with you 1,000%. I'm just conflicted. Like, the nigga was out here taking selfies with cats in the street. Like,
Yeah,
I don't know
I
if this
mean-
was his way of, like, like, I might not be outside again, and let me try to, show some.
Well, if you're facing what he was facing, and a jury has to decide whether or not to go forward with it, it makes sense for you to be outside looking like you are, hugging babies and saving cats.
But
and
you would have
shit.
thought he was looking like damn near bulletproof, like indomitable, brushing his hair. This is like peak pup swag. Like, yeah,
His
what's
face
up?
looked a little.
Well,
His face looked a little pained. He looked like if you zoomed in on the face, you can tell he was like.
But you saw the dude who
weight
was like
of the-
talking
it
shit
was
for, like,
just
yo, this is
coming.
Puff Daddy right here. And he was brushing his hair like, yeah, take that.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
it's part of his ego. Like, you look at this indictment and you're looking at somebody who's not operating from a place of humanity or decency. Like, and to get to that point, a lot of the time, especially when you're someone that famous, there's a level of hubris that you reach, and I think that's him feeding into it for himself. Like, I don't think he knows how to not be that version. Of
Yeah, I don't
Puff
think that
Daddy.
comes off, especially now.
Yeah.
Like, you need that, whatever armor he's built up over the years. You need that now more than ever.
Right.
Well, and yeah, the PR gloss is like, I mean, to that point, it's like, you can't sit here. If you look like something's wrong and
Yeah.
you look guilty, that's only going to invite more questions of like, oh, Diddy, had a hood over his head and he, just walked back and, the back of a restaurant, didn't say nothing to nobody.
Yeah.
Like, that's only going to invite more scrutiny of like, oh, he must know something. Especially because none of us, knew that this arrest was going to happen on Monday. I mean, we knew this was in the ether. We knew it was going to be out there ever since Cassie's lawsuit last year. Like, it was always coming. But if you start to look like really like, oh man, the past week, the weight's getting to him, something's going to jump off.
Yeah.
And so it's sort of just that pretend like everything's okay until the moment it's not.
I just want to know, man, brother Love, man.
And it's definitely not. Right now.
Yeah, I
No,
have to
no,
say
no,
not his best
The
week.
reason why I'm leaving it with that is like, what do you got? Why do you need 1,000 bottles
Bro.
of baby
Oh,
oil?
God. Son.
That's a little crazy.
It's
What do you need 1,000 bottles for?
It's funny what prosecutors will say and what they won't.
Yeah,
like
it's like-
it's an intentional thing to drop
It's-
that detail, right?
Yeah.
Like it's
Well, like
These
these
are-
things
yeah.
are, especially in the age of social media, you'll see it with like 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 any antitrust case that comes down with like a big company, like these things are written knowing that the public's going to read them, so you try to tell a story with the indictment so people can like better understand where you're going and like what you're trying to do and like why this thing is happening. And so it's 100%. I'm sure they found a bunch of other things that are maybe not as on its face in a vacuum as hilarious as 1,000 bottles of baby oil, but it's like, this paints a picture of how freaky this nigga was because we found 1,000 bottles of baby oil. Like he could, like, I don't know what would be worse, that or like the massive drums of baby oil that if you have just like a pump and it's like a fucking standing drum.
Not
of
the
baby
Costco
oil.
super family size.
Like, would that be worse, or is it worse to have like a pantry full of baby oil? And it's like, which one today?
I'm curious what conversations y'all had, maybe whether it was with parents or like your elders. I know I was talking to my mom on the way here, and she was asking me what a freak off was.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I was gonna get into that. It's like I understand the legal strategy behind like
this whole thing,
using the term freak off in there, because you're trying to you're honest ways towards understanding that he was committing sex crime without actually trying him for a sex crime, although it's just harder to try, so you allude to it in the storytelling of the indictment.
Yeah.
But the downside of it is like, we are currently a society that is very, very, very unserious. So you see the term freak offs 100%. And people are just like cracking jokes, all up and down the timeline in real life, trying to figure out what they actually were. And it's like, yeah, these were gatherings where people were not in a state of being where they can give consent to what was happening. So it was like allegedly, right? So it's like it's a lot darker than what the term might give off, just the innate hilarity of the term freak off. So that's like the weird part of seeing that term like in the official documents. But yeah, it also put me in a weird spot, having to explain to my parents and like older people in my life what this thing that a freak off was. It's
or even just seeing
gross.
It's just every day now. You just see it cascading down X, and on Instagram. It's just it's like now it's a part of the cultural parlance. Freak off is now a thing that we have to
that
with.
The diddler, like no Diddy, like all the different expressions that came out of this just further cheapen what actually we're talking about here when we look at this full indictment, we look at what he allegedly has done to people. But some of the biggest takeaways so far have been memed by the internet, and now they're just stuck in our lexicon in this really uncomfortable way.
I'm curious to ask you guys this. I was talking to Kyle before the show. There's a few people, who I spoke to when they were very open eyes and said, yo, the time that he's facing, because, if found guilty, he's cooked. He's facing life. He's done.
For one of the charges.
Now, knowing that, is it too much?
It's tough to say right now. I think we have to see like the totality of what's been discovered and, hear all the testimonies. So, because, we don't know.
Right.
Like, I didn't know until yesterday or the day before, whenever, that they found AR-15s with the serial numbers scraped off. And it's like,
then they found like a pink powder substance that was ecstasy.
It's like, I don't know what else is going to happen or what's going to be discovered during the course of this case. So I don't know. I think it's too early to tell.
Yeah. As somebody who has, grown up loving Bad Boy, Puff, what he was able to represent, like, I'm curious, man, how are you, taking all this?
It sucks. I think I said this yesterday in another meeting. It feels like a betrayal. This is a person who, I think more than anybody else, if you grew up in the 90s listening to hip hop, there was no larger, and you're from the East Coast, like I was, there was no larger figure than Diddy. Even if you hated the idea of Diddy, even if you thought that he was, cheapening rap and by making it too pop leaning, and he was, making what he was doing was not considered hip hop. I remember speaking to, I won't say this guy's name, I remember speaking to a music exec years ago, and I told him my favorite rap album was Harlem World, and I was like, I don't think it's the best, it's just my favorite. And he was like, oh man, Harlem World's when rap died. He's like, that's when hip hop died. And to me, I was like, that's an insane thing. But there are people who feel that way. But even if you are that person, Diddy still loomed large enough for you to believe that he could end this thing that you were a part of. Yeah. And it's tough to reconcile and to wrap your head around what was allegedly going on while he was building this world that you as a fan were so a part of and then bought so much into. Yeah, it's pretty fucked. It's devastating to learn. You don't want to believe that your most formative years were helped along by a guy that was doing such allegedly heinous things. So, not a good time.
It's conflicting. I mean, guys, this is somebody who was just nominated for a Grammy. So, his fortune, obviously, really shitty right now. How do you guys look at Puff's legacy, with everything that's just been transpiring the last year or so? Like, shit, are you guys going to give him the R. Kelly treatment where it's like, I might not be bumping any more Puff?
I mean, obviously with R. Kelly, I'll speak sort of general. The thing about R. Kelly that always was talked about was how the music felt like it was a real reflection of what was going on. It was sort of, in the subtext of all the lyrics, age a number to number, like whatever sort of, things R. Kelly was talking about. Everyone's like, but he's been saying it on the record. Like, listen to the
Factory in the midst of the trial.
It's insane.
Yeah,
it's fucking crazy.
I mean, but with Puff, like, I don't know how, and especially, if he is convicted on, any of these things, I mean, I feel like that's a clear sort of death sentence, at least, especially in a public forum. I actually heard somebody playing R. Kelly the other day, and I was like, no.
That's stepping in the name
no,
of love, K-Boy.
Sir. No, sir. I was like,
when it's up in the name of love, come on.
I was like,
don't lie now, God's watching.
No. I was just
the
like,
happy people come on.
I told myself, damn, you got any more R. Kelly songs you want to step to?
Because I can see Trevor do the little.
Your playlist is still very active.
Mine's empty.
Oh, okay.
Dave knows the only one I play. And that's the Jay-Z R. Kelly, guilty till proven innocent. That's it.
Like I said to that person out there, I said, this is brave. This is really brave. But yeah, I mean, I feels like, especially like, again, to what Kyle's point is, when we really dive into what is going to be unsealed, all the people that have been talking about this, all the things that are going to come out. I mean, this is a federal raid. I forgot, like the FBI raided 2 of these houses. Like, this is something that has been set up for so long. This is no willy-nilly kind of, let's just go see you. I mean, this has to be planned for months, if not years, like, to really go in on this. So I'm scared of what's coming out. I think it's going to, completely just remove him from public life in that sense. And it was kind of crazy because, especially for someone who grew up sort of just after Puff's biggest era, in the mid-90s, 97 in particular, he was really kind of that last figure of that mythical era who was still out here. Obviously, we already lost Tupac, we lost Biggie. Dre, is much more reclusive than Puff, certainly. Snoop is still out there probably, and Suge Knight was always, very reclusive. Sort of the lore and the myth was always out there, but you never really saw the man. So for him to sort of be the last big domino of that era, that kind of that really just is crazy, because it feels like nobody can really continue that legacy on, and everybody's either unfortunately been murdered or is tainted in some way. I mean, except pretty much Snoop is like the only one who's sort of keeping it out there. So it just sucks for that period of hip hop, because that period, of course, is so massive in terms of how hip hop really just became this global, commercial force. I mean, some of the best records of, all hip hop history are that era. We got the rise of so many legends, and it felt like Puff could maybe be the one who, became the sort of chief mourner, chief architect, the guy that, whether you love him or hate him, he was there in that moment and he could help tell that story. And now it's like, damn, like there are no heroes in that era, it feels like, anymore.
Yeah. I mean, you're talking about Biggie, 112, Lil Kim, Mary J. Blige, Total. That tree spans.
Even, I think he's such a I think if you stop listening to his solo music,
Yeah.
sure, that's a very easy task. I think it gets increasingly difficult as you go further into the genre of R&B. And I mean, this guy was executive producing albums for people who he seemingly had no connection to. You know, we were talking about Wyclef and LL.
Yeah.
He executive produced Phenomenon. You know, like he was such a part of the fabric of hip hop that I don't know if you can extricate it in the same way that you can R. Kelly, because I can't think of an era between 94 and 2015 maybe where he wasn't just churning out music for people. I don't know how you parse that.
That's tough. I mean,
do you punish people for having an album produced by Diddy?
Yeah.
It'd also be interesting to see, like what we saw with R. Kelly when a few artists who had collaborated with him decided to pull their own music from Spotify and other streaming services. Thinking like Lady Gaga in particular. So be curious to see maybe in the next couple weeks, months, especially like as we get to the trial period and especially after the verdict, if some of the collaborators do choose to go that route. It will be probably a little harder for them just in the sense of, you know, who owns the music. I mean, obviously if Puff's footprints are probably, you know, he's much more a business executive than say R. Kelly was. So if they even have the rights to pull it down or who owns the music might be a contentious point, but that's one thing that I'll definitely look out for, you know, as we move forward in this saga.
Kyle, I'm curious, with you being the youngest one here, like, you know, I guess speaking for your generation, is there like this kind of reverence, I guess, that we have for Puff because we're older, like you see with your generation?
I would say, yeah, especially growing up in New York. Like, at the time I'm growing up, like, he's already been solidified as an icon and a legend. So he is part of every party you go to, every gathering, every function. Like, you're hearing at least really 4 or 5 songs with his vocals on it, let alone tracks that he hasn't had a hand in, you know, helping produce, helping write, just being in the studio around. So it's like that reference was almost built in. Like, we didn't even have to witness a rise. We kind of came up and it was like, these are the established icons. You kind of have to have some level of respect for them. And then they become a part of your own life. And then on top of that, we're growing up in an era where he's not just a massive star and recording artist, he's also part of pop culture as just a figure and a symbol. Like, you think of Kesha just, you know, changing that lyric in her song where he used to reference Diddy, and now she is, I think the line is something along the lines of like, wake up in the morning feeling like P. Diddy, and now it's like, wake up in the morning like fuck P. Diddy. Like, and that's an electro pop song from 2011. Like, that's how far his influence extends and across how many generations he's influenced and impacted. So I think we definitely had that reverence. I think I'm probably currently personally inclined to like not do a full mute on the stuff that he has had a hand in versus like his solo stuff, like what Dame was saying before, mostly because the music wasn't always like an exact reflection of what some of these allegations are, so it's a bit easier to put up that level of separation versus an R. Kelly. But in times like this, I really just think about Cassie, who isn't named in the 14-page indictment that just, you know, got unsealed yesterday. But it's clear when you read that her testimony from last November really was the missing link to putting all of this together so we got to this point. And, you know, you think of the way her career was completely just kneecapped by Diddy, you know, and what her account of that was. So in a way, I kind of want to like stream her stuff and stream her non-Diddy stuff to give her, you know, just whatever boost I can and support instead of, you know, throwing money behind Diddy or anything like that. But yeah, to answer your question, definitely still have that reference from him. And we also watched his family like have careers of their own. Like, not only do we have Diddy, we have King Combs. Like, we watched him do music, we watched him do reality TV. Like, he has a big following amongst my age group as well. So it's like the family itself is also just entrenched in pop culture, which makes this whole thing even more devastating. But yeah,
To that point, man, pray to the kids, man.
yeah.
I saw like the twin daughters they're going to be living with Kim Porter's best friend. I saw that report. Another thing to note, which I thought was kind of crazy before we pivot, this is all happening a week after the 28th anniversary of Tupac's passing. So Pac is probably like,
I saw some of the memes too, where he was floating in the clouds, just looking down, like.
like.
I mean, to that point, this is like all coming out, like happening like a couple days after Kendrick drops "Watch the Party Die," and like
There you go.
You think of just what he's talking about in that song, Kendrick going up for Pac himself this entire year, like it's very cosmically poetic in that sense. But yeah, time has been crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, on a non-Pac note too, people were cycling that Cat Williams video where he said, in 2024, and he named Diddy and everything. Diddy and everybody is gonna, and it's like.
That's a good impression. That's a money. That's a money impression right there. I gotta give you that. I was a little slick.
I'm available for work if you're interested.
I like that.
Having a low budget Cat Williams, but yeah, but like the fact that it's like it feels like cosmic, poetic, bigger than just happenstance. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, and I know 50's laughing to the bank.
Oh yeah, we saw.
Because he's about to cash the fuck in.
Already making his memes and shit.
Yeah. Guys, for any more Puff updates, please go to Billboard.com. Especially when we get news about this trial date too. So we'll keep our eyes on that. Pivoting over, Miss Tyla. By the way, I love Tyla, man. Her coming through Billboard R&B #1s, doing her thing there. She was just racking them up. Got an award there. Got an award at the VMAs. Had a little viral moment. A little tiny viral moment with Miss Halle Bailey. She couldn't hold her award, which was something we saw at the R&B #1s too.
Those awards are heavy.
I was gonna say we gotta make these awards lighter or something. Really,
So we'll give her the benefit of the doubt there.
We with our foresight had people
to hold you. Yeah, that's fair.
That's what we did.
That's fair. Shout out to us. Shout out to MTV could learn a little something.
Just a little.
Yeah, good
point. A little event planning note,
That's a great point. But the main point of contention wasn't that. It was her speech, her award-winning speech at the VMAs, where she was saying she does not want to be classified as an Afrobeats artist, that she falls under the tree of Amapiano, which led to a broader discussion about just classification of artists, especially with Afrobeats. It's a very touchy, sensitive thing. So does she have a valid claim with that? I'm curious to ask you guys.
I would say yes, because I'm looking when I remembered who was nominated in that category alongside her and the songs that they were nominated for and the videos they were nominated for. It was like this is an R&B song, this is a pop song, this is an Afrobeat song, this is an Amapiano song, and yet they're all only in this category. It's not like they're also getting recognition in R&B and pop fields. They're all being relegated to this Afrobeats umbrella, which is already a faulty umbrella because that's the term that, the States kind of landed on when it first broke through here, and we didn't really do much to properly notate the different styles and subgenres that are coming out from across the continent. So you have people who are not even operating at all in the lineage of what actual Afrobeat sounds like. They still get called that. And I understand how that can be frustrating and put them in a spot where it's like, I'm not saying fuck my award, but I am saying it's weird accepting this, knowing the kind of music that I make and knowing the awards that I'm winning over people who are making that kind of music. And it's like, no, some of this stuff is just R&B. They need to be put in the proper categories, and we should, at this point in Afrobeat's sort of like stateside crossover journey, there should be just greater care taken across the board from, all kinds of music institutions about how we classify and categorize things. I mean, even the song and video that won the Best K-pop award is like performed entirely in English, and it's like, why wasn't that also nominated for Best Pop is a valid question. Why wasn't it? So I think she definitely had a valid point, and I wish that was truly the focal point of the night and not the whole awards snafu, but what can you do?
Agree. 1,000%.
What can you do?
Trev.
Yeah, I mean, I think Kyle hit a lot of that on the head. I want to add, too, that sometimes it can be a business sort of decision and a lane like, especially for a genre that's emerging where the infrastructure on the Western labels is maybe not fully fleshed out. There is, there is not a lot of attention where, okay, are you Afro pop? Are you Afro R&B? Are you, straight Afro beats, to where those relationships, whether it's with streaming services or award shows or whatever, aren't fully focused. So sometimes people do get just lumped into one, well, you kind of sound like this, so these people can work you, or you look like this, so, you can fit in this landscape. And so I think, hopefully as the genre continues to grow and the worldwide impact continues to just get larger and larger, those kind of infrastructures can be put in place to where, everybody who comes from sub-Saharan Africa is not just Afrobeats, that we can recognize the differences between things that are happening in Nigeria or Ghana or South Africa and put those guardrails into place. Obviously with Tyla being, maybe, at least certainly in the past couple of years, the biggest South African breakout, hopefully like that as a pioneer, it sort of sucks that you have to go through that lane, but now that people are recognizing, okay, there is a different sound coming out of South Africa. I've seen a lot of people, learning about Amapiano for the first time and realizing, yes, there is a difference between what's happening in Nigeria and what's happening in South Africa. Hopefully, the next artist who comes through and the ones after that have it a little easier than going through this.
Yeah, Dame.
I mean, yeah, it's a tale as old as time. I don't think Black people have been crying about being miscategorized since we started making music. And it gets more difficult when you are from a continent or a country on a continent that people are wholly unfamiliar with. I think, I feel her frustration, and I think her points are valid. I think also the American music market is not as thoughtful as she probably hopes it is. And, there's people who, if you were to ask the people, I'm sure there's people who love the Tyla song that have no idea what country she's from, have no idea what the difference is between Nigeria and South African culture, let alone music. So, I think in the education, it's going to be a slow roll in doing that. And I think it's up to artists like her to help along that education and to say, thank you for the acknowledgement. However, this person is an Afrobeat artist. What I do is this. And, I understand the frustration again, but I think it's like you have to really understand the market. You're at the VMAs. I'm surprised they even have a category for that. It's like this is like new stuff, and we're gonna have to work with people to help them understand what's going on here. Especially if you look at how many Black American artists go up at award shows and like Tyler and being like, "Yo, thank you, but this is not a."
That's what I was just gonna
It's not a rap album.
Yeah. I mean,
so it's valid, but it's also there's a lot of work to do, and you gotta do the work. We all have to do the work.
To that point, yeah, because I think about if you really want to open this whole shit up.
Open it up.
No, because
Get the can open.
Real talk, you think about it, even with R&B, right? We try to break it down into different subgenres, you got the fucking Sade's, the D'Angelo's, the whole neo soul shit.
Not the fucking Sade.
But I mean, I say that because she's a fucking legend. That's what I mean. Yeah, you gotta throw the fucking on it because she's a fucking legend. But I say that to say, is it that much of a tedious task to want to have to break down every genre to subgenres?
I think artists want to feel like their music is being properly received, and if you make something and the market is like, oh, here's product A, and you're like, it's not a product A, it's clearly a product C. But the whole world is like, man, I love product A's. What are you gonna do? It's very much a possibility that people, this is as much as people can understand.
Right.
I know people get really frustrated at these at the way these things move and how these things work. Their whole job is to sell music, right? Like it's in their benefit for people to better understand this so they can better consume the stuff. And it's like, we need more education, but also if we were to make it more complicated, there's this chance that people will just tune out.
Yeah, that's what
I know. And it's like, it's a very, 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 like, there's, my family's Jamaican. I grew up listening to reggae. There's so many different types of reggae music that no one knows about. It's all reggae to everybody. No matter what, no matter who makes it, it's reggae music. And that's just what it is. Yeah. To Jamaicans, they'll rattle off like, this is roots reggae, and this is culture. To Americans, it's like, this is just reggae music.
This is gonna sound crazy, me saying this. I feel like the only award show that at least tries to break it down from an award standpoint, maybe the Grammys. Because
it helps when you can give out, 75.
That part, yeah. Because I mean, everything else is pretty generic. It's just like best R&B, best rap. And it's just like, fuck it. If it fits, if this is the bucket that is the most appropriate, just throw it in there.
Like, you can't be mad at an artist for wanting their art to be properly received.
Right. Absolutely.
You can never be upset at that. And I also think we in the media and the artists need to do the work to make sure that people understand that, and that's just a part of the work. Now people who probably have never heard of any of the stuff she said is going to go home and Google it and be like, oh, what is she talking about? And that's like a first step, right. And hopefully someone comes after her that's as big. And when Afrobeats came out, people were like, what is this?
Mm-hmm.
Is this just reggae?
That was a
reggae,
like to sort of get the there's a dance hall, like that's a whole different region of the world. That's
just a drum pad.
It just takes education, and it takes more people. So,
and it's always going to be reactive. I think people kind of have to understand that and have a little grace with it, because the artists are going to be the ones who are on the forefront, making something that we never heard before, combining these two sounds, switching this up. And so, those sort of infrastructures are quite ready for, there are things now that we probably look back at and would have been like, oh, when the first melodic rap records came along, people are probably like, is this, okay, we kind of singing, so is this more R&B? Is this like on a trap beat? No. And now, it's so squarely taken over the hip hop lane that it's like you get more melody and singing than you do like, hardcore Southern rap, whatever. It's like, so now, 10 years back, we would have looked at that as okay, we got to change.
From the guys, I would say.
From generally the men. But we would look back at that as like, okay, maybe the R&B space is what's changing. We need to go with that. No, actually, it's the hip hop space that's really changing. And now that we see that with the benefit of hindsight, we know sort of where those things lie. But at the time, there are plenty of conversations about like how is this going to work? In terms of the business, in terms of marketing, in terms of targeting. It's one of those things that when you log on any product for the first time and they ask you like, what are 5 genres you like? And it's like, so from jump, it's already like, let's get some order and some structure around this and try to figure out what works and what doesn't, and where you go and where you belong and who we can target that to and sell that to, and what demographic and genre and base likes that. So that's sort of the starting point. And, I think we can only sort of catch up as artists continue to innovate, and really they're the ones who are pioneering all this. So we on the business side, have to just try to Dame's point, close the gap as best we can, but we're never gonna really be right there with them.
Yeah, agreed. Let's try to do better, ladies and gentlemen.
let's do better.
Let's
people.
do better.
That's it.
Final topic for the show for the day, Mr. Wheezy F, baby. I thought this whole thing was done, but of course the man himself had some words. He chimed in about the Super Bowl halftime show Snub on Instagram last week. Voiced his disappointment. Kind of expected, this award show to be his, being that's going to be in New Orleans next year. Curious to get y'all thoughts and feedback about his reaction to being snubbed. Do you feel for him?
I think, and this is one of the great and horrible things about, I guess, the internet, and this, I don't want to say horrible, it's not that horrible, but unfortunate things about the internet is that Yeah, is that we sort of perpetuate these narratives. I think
Right.
that you know, I remember when I think somebody was tweeting about Missy Elliott to get the Vanguard Award, and it just started. You know, I don't think that year she wasn't in contention or whatever. Somebody's like, "Hey, Missy needs this."
Became a whole thing.
Obviously, we haven't seen a lot of Missy in music and whatnot, so we weren't sure she's gonna pop back out, whatever. And that really got a lot of traction. And I don't know for sure. I don't have any sourcing of the VMAs, but soon after, she, like a year or so later, she does get it. So it's sort of one of those things where people say, okay, that narrative, which had purpose and had logic and reason behind it, ended up translating into that moment. So I imagine I could see the same situation where, when Super Bowl was going to be announced in New Orleans, there was this interest that was drummed up to like, well, yo, Weezy shit. Like, of course it's going to be Weezy. Why wouldn't it be Weezy? It's going to be in New Orleans. Yeah, it should be. You're right. Wouldn't Wayne be? Yeah. Okay, of course they're going to pick Wayne. 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 They're going to pick Kendrick. And then, so I feel like we sort of got in this soup where we just believed. I shouldn't say we. The internet believed that it was just going to have to happen. And that's not how necessarily business decisions and things like that work. I'm sure they saw, you can ignore the chatter. I'm sure they saw about it, processed it, whatever, made the decision to go with Kendrick. But it's just sort of unfortunate that I guess we let this jump to a point where we were all convinced and for sure that it was going to happen. And we could only let ourselves down off something that we really had no foundation for, like the truth of it to be out there.
Yeah. I think it's important to mention, too, when you say Zay, Super Bowl halftime producer Jesse Collins, who just had an interview with Variety, the man responsible for the halftime show performance these last 5 years has been Mr. Sean Carter. So he is handpicking these choices.
Interesting. Because, because now everybody's like, wait a second. Didn't we say last week there was the report out that the host city, it's the host city makes the decision, at least in part with. So, Oprah, what is the truth?
I think the host city has like a hand in it, but I think the final choice is like Hove. Which would be.
I mean, it's funny because that's what we all suspected, and then it sort of came out and it was corrected, and now it's like, y'all were right. It's true.
Kyle?
We
know you pro Dot.
Come on.
I get that Wayne probably felt compelled to make this video statement on IG Live and blah, blah, blah. I hate that it even got to that point. And it's like, part of it for me is like, I feel like the fans deluding themselves into thinking that one outcome was the only outcome that could have possibly happened is part of like fans overstepping their boundaries as fans and thinking that they're also in these rooms making these decisions and know how any of this goes down. By the time that ad with Kendrick dropped, like, there is no point in any of this discussion. Like, every paper has been signed. He's probably already booking or has already booked rehearsal space. Like, at best, we're looking at Wayne coming out as a guest, and you guys are already ruining what that moment could be because everyone's whining about a decision that's been made. Like, the ad is airing. Like, it's happening. I hate that, like, it got to this point that, like, I can't remember another performer in recent memory, like, actually going and putting up a video being like, oh, I'm heartbroken, I wasn't chosen, and da-da-da-da. Like, what is that? Like,
oh, damn.
I can't,
Damn.
like, what is that, though? Like,
damn.
People are in contention every single year. I don't think anyone does that.
Outcry to this degree.
I also don't think this would have been an outcry. There would have been an outcry to this degree if it was someone other than Kendrick who was chosen. I think that's also part of it.
I think so.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
100%.
Yes.
Wow. But everybody's been Team Kendrick, so now you think they're kind of...
Everyone hasn't been Team Kendrick. Everyone has been on either side of this thing.
It's like it's been 80-20, but even then, like...
So you're saying the outrage of Kendrick because it's
this
what?
Is rich.
Because it's
Okay.
Wayne to Drake to Kendrick?
We don't get Nicki Minaj pretending that Jay-Z slighted some up-and-coming black young artist if it wasn't Kendrick Lamar.
We don't get Drake posting a picture on an Instagram story showing support if it wasn't because it was Kendrick chosen to somebody else. Like,
So you're
It's
saying
a
if it was like
very
if it was like
contentious
Taylor
time.
Swift instead of Kendrick, you think everybody would just of course because it's Taylor because she's the biggest pop star in the world.
I think
Got
almost
it.
anybody over. I think the fact that the
Really?
first solo rap headlining show was happening in New Orleans and they didn't choose Lil Wayne, they ended up choosing someone who effectively like murdered his son in cold blood in front of the entire world this year. Yeah, I think people are like up in arms.
Okay,
about
so
it.
it's the
Trevor's
Wayne,
point-
it's the Wayne, it's the Wayne Drake Kendrick
Going
pipeline.
back to
Okay.
Taylor, I think anybody else that was not named Wayne, there would have been some kind of outcry.
Because I'm thinking if they'd
Not
have
to
gone
this
Heritage
extent.
Not
Act
to
or
this
something,
extent.
I'd-
With it being
'Cause
in
I
New Orleans?
also-
Not to this
With it
extent.
being in New Orleans,
Yes, because this whole thing of the host city having something to do with like who gets picked to be a performer is like a very recent development. Like there is not overlap.
But
There
you also have to
normally
remember,
isn't.
It's happened once.
Wayne
And it barely
voiced-
was even a thing. It was
Yeah.
like he curated it, and there were like 3 out of the 5 people also weren't from California, they were from that coast of the country.
But you also have to remember too, Wayne voiced, wanting to do this
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
Going
yeah,
back,
passionate
Tons
desire.
of people
yeah.
do.
I think that's definitely a part of it. I think it's been a very contentious few months, and all of it mixed together has created this boiling point, which I don't think we get if it's not Kendrick Lamar.
Mhm.
I don't think
Wow.
you get it because also it's like people are looking at it like, oh, if you're gonna pick a rapper, why not pick this guy
Yeah.
who's from this city, who is also a legend, who voiced that he would love, it's a dream of his to do this. Why wouldn't you get that guy instead of the guy, as Kyle said, who had some words for his understudy?
That's crazy.
Like, why
I
would
could
you
see
do
it though.
that?
I don't want to put 2 and 2 together, but I could understand it.
I think if it was like a Taylor Swift, of course, like. But
Okay, but let's say
this
it's
is the
not-
thing. People are upset every year at the Super Bowl,
Right.
But not like,
that
this.
was,
That's what I'm saying.
That's the reason they got Jay-Z in the first place, is because people were like, "Why the fuck do you keep getting like, all of these
These
like,
heritage old
but
guitar
let's
acts,
also
old
sure,
people who
yeah.
aren't relevant?" Jay-Z comes in and starts doing this thing, and people are like, "Oh, this is better." And even then, people are like, "Well, why is it this person? Why isn't it that person?" But this was the year for some reason where people are like up in arms. We have the first solo rapper who is a black man doing it, and people are like, it should be this other solo black man rapper, and black man rapper sounds hilarious, and it should be him. But I think if it was Taylor Swift, people would be like upset for sure, but they'd be like, oh well,
I
we
think
had
they'll
no
probably-
chance because they're clearly going for this.
I think it would be more outcry if it was Taylor
No,
Swift.
I
I
think
don't
it's
think
like,
so.
oh, if that's what you're going for, because we've had like 6 niggas in a row.
From the hip hop
Well,
community,
I
there'll be
think
outcry.
I think Taylor Swift is a real like unicorn exception because she is the biggest pop star in the like bar none. But I think if there if it's
Like a Miley.
I don't-
'Cause that's
or
the
like
thing
a
that
Billie
I
Eilish or
saw.
something,
Let's say
maybe
if it was
even
Billie
it's-
Eilish, there
I
would
think
be
people
outcry in the hip hop community.
I think
If-
people would because
Yeah.
obviously
That's what I'm
Billie
saying,
is
yeah.
very hot right now, huge single. But I think the fact that it would have been like, okay, but y'all still could like y'all could have gave Billie next year, she'll still be hot. Wayne in this city in this moment, I do think.
I also
like I think they're.
I think there would be outcry. I don't think we'd be talking about it for weeks. I
Yeah.
think it'd have been like, all right, well, that was.
And I think that crowd would more just generally be like, damn, I wish it was somebody who was a rapper or somebody who was in that space and not
Yeah.
specifically like outcry. I think the Wayne specific outcry definitely has a connection to who was picked as well. Like, I don't think those two things are, you can't unlink
Like
them.
Nicki would not be this upset.
That's fair.
Like
I
this
don't
is
know,
like her
actually.
third
I don't
tirade
know.
in like forever, and it's like you've done the Super Bowl already. Like, were you hoping that Young Money would bring y'all would have a little reunion also, and you missed out on that? Like, people have been talking at a very like fervent level for a long time now, like about this pick when this should be a cause for celebration because it is literal history.
But do you think is the Nicki thing? Is it against like Kendrick or is it's pro Wayne?
I think it's pro-Wayne.
it's anti J, to be completely honest with you. Like when you read those
That
comments
part.
and you
Right.
read it,
That part.
it's not
Okay,
even
yeah.
really pro
That
Wayne
part.
or anti Kendrick. It's anti
That
J.
part.
That's
Yeah.
where
So,
her
but to the
grievances
point of
lie.
True.
to the point of would she be going this hard if it were like anybody but Wayne? I mean, at that point, by
I
that
mean,
logic, yeah.
Honestly, by that logic, I think because it is Wayne, yeah, that's like also her one person that she does ride for outside of like Drake in the industry. You know, she kind of
yeah. I mean, to
don't got
death.
many.
Yeah.
Can I pose y'all this question real quick? It's a two-parter, so really quick. If Kendrick calls you, if you're Wayne, and says, hey, I want you to come on stage, are you going to pop up at the Super Bowl this year? That's A. And then B, if that doesn't happen, if Jay says, I want you to perform at the Super Bowl next year, which is going to be in San Francisco, are you doing it?
Yes and yes.
Yeah, yes and yes.
I mean,
You either want to perform at the Super Bowl or you don't.
Like, you don't change overnight because there was like drama and people like were crying about it for this 1 year. I think Kendrick has always been open to how much he loves and adores Wayne as a rapper, as a overall like role model in the game. I think if Kendrick approached him, as Kendrick probably would, with respect and admiration, he would absolutely do it. Mm-hmm. And if you get offered the Super Bowl next year, I can't really imagine him saying no, especially after you've now played into making this public outcry about how much you want it and how broken you are. It does look kind of crazy if you say no next year, even if it does maybe feel like a handout. Well, talk to your fans for backing you into that kind of corner by making it a handout situation when it didn't need to be. But
yeah, I guess that's the question. Like, does it feel like a pity? Like, you'll never know, right?
Yeah.
Like is it?
Like, that's all on your fans.
Is it a thing where, okay, I gotta pull out this olive branch or whatnot? If I'm Wayne, I mean, I guess ultimately I would put on for the city.
I guess you could come out for 30 seconds, nigga.
Wow.
I guess you could do lollipop for 30 seconds, nigga.
You gotta come out. That's
I mean,
ridiculous.
I feel like, I mean, just because I feel like the city would go up so hard for that moment, like, and it almost would be a bygones be bygones kind of thing. Like if that happens, that's just going to be the happy ending to the story. Mm-hmm. And so it might take a minute for me to, swallow that pride or really, call him back. But ultimately, I think just for the city and to know what they would go for, I would do it.
And would you take the San Francisco call?
Yeah, but I kind of think, if one happens, I don't know if the other happens.
Got it. Okay. Makes sense.
Or there'd probably be some space in between.
Yeah, I mean, I can't necessarily see, I don't know anybody who's really pulled up back to back, so.
The only one I can think is the reverse that Bruno did. But he had first and then came out as a guest after.
Yeah.
I mean, Kendrick went to one. Now he's doing it.
Oh yeah, Kendrick himself.
I mean, that's true.
Yeah. I gotta throw this out there real quick, not to be the wet blanket for Wayne, but no, and I'm a huge Wayne supporter. So about the Apollo, he was dope, but Wayne does have a history for canceling, showing up late.
100%.
But I do think, I mean, to Wayne's point, I think like it's sort of in the interviews and the podcasts and things, what this is, and everybody's gonna sit you down and say, let me tell you something. I don't care what's going on. You get in the Beyonce Coachella, 6 months, we're rehearsing every day. You're not drinking, you're not smoking. We are not messing this up. The night after, you go do whatever you want, bro. But this moment right here, and he knows how serious it is.
The Grammys, the Hip Hop 50 tribute, he was supposed to be part of that, and he bailed very last second.
Yeah, but the Grammys go on.
Yeah,
we're not about to.
Didn't show up. You didn't show up for sound check,
rehearsals and all that. Yeah, you're not about to have the NFL put a spotlight on and.
Because Goodell.
Where's Wayne? Wait a minute. Where's
Goodell
Wayne?
Ain't playing that shit.
So I know all those reports are out there. I personally
from every
believe
NFL game going forward.
Yeah, I think he would lock in.
The
Packers.
Let the Packers be playing somehow.
Yeah.
I think Wayne understands. I think he would definitely take that serious. I have all faith in that.
Okay.
And if not, the team better take it serious and make it happen.
Rooting for you, Wayne. Somehow, some way. Lastly, let's get to our lightning round picks of the week. Mr. Scott, what you bumping?
I am listening to Trying to Understand All Red by Playboy Cardi.
Trying to understand.
I don't.
It's
So
a top 5 future song this year.
Right?
I love
it's
it.
well. That's all right. So I wanted to discuss it with all of you guys. I think it's a great song.
Yeah.
But why does it sound the way it sounds?
It's a great question.
It's okay. It's cool to be inspired, right?
Remember when everyone was like, this designer kid is trash. He sounds just like Future.
Panda.
Mm-hmm. This sounds
Timmy
more,
Turner, let's go.
This sounds more like Future
than
Panda sounded like Future.
Wow.
Yes.
I agree with that.
I can agree with that.
I thought this was Future. When I
did check that. I was like, is there a hidden feature on here? But the voice didn't change.
I thought it was Future. I was like, this is dope. You got Future on the record. No, it's just
Psych.
I feel like in my gut, this is just like not what the rest of the record sounds like, and this is just what this one song sounds like. It doesn't even sound like his collabs and Lucy's from earlier this year. Like, it all sounds like a different Cardi in a different era. So maybe just for the sake of it being the lead single, this might be like the most commercial record he has. I don't expect the rest of the album to sound like this, but I don't know why he went for this sound, but I'm not mad at it. Like,
It's the most
good.
lucid he's sounded on a record in,
This
a
is
while
true.
in
For
terms
sure.
of just like being like him making an accessible rap record. This is it. This is like closer to the center of rap than anything else he's made over the past few years. It's just bizarre to me that he's able, that he sounds like Future. Also bizarre that he's able to sound just like Future. Like, I was like, is this AI or is this just him
Got that ear, you know.
like morphing his voice to sound like it? That's how close it is.
It is very, very close.
It's utterly bizarre.
Are you excited for the album?
I'm excited for the album just because I'm always excited to see what Cardi does. This is just like,
Can you imagine if he sounds like Future's entire album?
or if he
Yo.
sounds like
That'd be
various
gas.
other
I would love
artists.
that.
Yeah, it's a best.
not the ventriloquist series.
Yeah.
What if
Right.
he just sounds? He sounds like Drake and then Thug and then because he's sounded like Thug on
yeah.
records before. But this was fascinating. It's a great record though.
Well, it's off to a crazy streaming start too, so
Really?
definitely, yeah.
Uh.
I mean, it's been streaming very well on Apple, strong on Spotify too. So
You're welcome, Cardi.
should come through pretty high next week.
Also crazy he's doing this as Future is about to drop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Friday. Yep.
So
Mixtape Pluto.
all crazy. If
Wonder
there's
if he
nothing on the
pops
Future
up
album
on
that's as
that.
good as this song, then
Oh, Future's got a problem.
Uh-oh.
yeah. But that's my pick.
Okay. Kyle.
I picked a song that Ferg featured on last week, and now I'm back with another Ferg pick. This
Okay.
is
Come on, double
Off
first.
White Rose. It's so hard. It's like that classic 90s New York sound, but actually fresh in a way that doesn't sound like he's doing pastiche or trying to recreate the exact feel of that era, but you kind of get that like lunchroom beatbox vibe, but in a very 2020s way. And Ferg just is so electric on a record every time he gets on there. Like his voice just is so commanding in a way that I feel is still so underrated in today's landscape, like, and how we utilize his voice on records. Like, great voice on him, and it's a fun track, party starting track, and I hope to hear it a lot at Homecoming. But yeah,
I was gonna say, we miss
Okay,
Ferg, man.
Homecoming.
We need a project. I feel like it's been 2 years, 3 years.
yeah, it's been a
At
minute,
least,
Yeah.
yeah.
but hopefully something's on the way because this one's good.
Okay, good pick. Trev.
I switched things up. Went to an R&B vibe this week.
All right.
Ooh.
And I've wanted to sort of talk about October London for a little bit, just because.
Baby
Make Mama
Marvin.
Gail proud.
Hey,
Well, because I think he's doing an interesting sort of thing, because especially, I guess, even maybe going back to the discussions about different pockets of R&B. I mean, this is a very retro leaning sound. The album is literally called The Rebirth of Marvin, so that just kind of gives you the vibe of what his voice in particular sounds like. A lot of the production was, in that sort of 60s, 70s kind of feel, but with R&B really being dominated by trap soul, a lot of more contemporary sounds. I think for the folks who like a little classic R&B vibe, he's coming through really well. The Back to Your Place song was a huge hit on the charts last year on the R&B radio stations. He's on Death Row with Snoop,
Shout out to
obviously having a big focus in his career there, so shout out to Snoop there. But the song in particular I want to highlight is a song he put out a few weeks ago called She Keeps Calling, which samples a stylistic classic, Hurry Up This Way Again. So a little more 80s vibe. So we're sort of slowly marching towards the present there, but I think he's got a very silky voice. He's very just sort of smooth, classic singer, great falsetto in particular. I'm always down for a good falsetto. So he really just is a very solid, strong singer, on tour right now with Maxwell and Jasmine Sullivan. So you got to bring it if you're on a bill with those heavyweights. And I think he definitely, in particular, this sound, is not so of the moment in a way that I think actually helps him stand out. And I think also lends itself to a really long career. There's not really going to be a moment where I think it's like, damn, you still trying to, play over these beats and this kind of, we moved on. It's like, no, from Jump, I think the whole catalog will really be one that stands out. So,
Okay.
shout out to him.
I like that.
Doing his thing, yeah.
I didn't have one, but I do have one.
Come on, off the cuff.
Yeah. No.
Come on, freestyle.
I'm gonna piggyback
Or
off
you bumping on the yacht?
Kyle.
oh right.
I was actually he did a Leon Thomas
Wait,
record.
what was that?
He did a Leon Thomas record. He did Mutt. I actually been playing the remix.
Freddie.
Gibbs.
Mm.
Shout out to Gangsta Gibbs.
Wait, say that one more time.
Leon Thomas
Song is called.
has a song called Mutt. And then he dropped a remix with Freddie Gibbs.
Yeah, correct.
What?
Gangsta Gibbs.
Yeah, correct.
Did not expect that.
Yeah, you know what? I could see it.
Apparently, he
though.
gave him the verse back like super quick too. Like he really likes the record.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
And the verse fits pretty much. Leon, he kept the hook, kept the vocals, kept everything essentially, and just added in a verse for Freddie. I miss Freddie Gibbs, man. I know he's been, in his happy relationship, so I'm sure he got some nice motivation for that verse. But now I love what Leon's able to do, man. We spoke about it before. His pen is crazy. He's gonna be on Blast's tour, which I believe kicks off next month. I want to say he's opening up for that.
Leon's album drops next week, 2 weeks from now.
Oh, there we go. And then when you're working with Ty Dolla, some magic is going to ensue. So I definitely want to see what the album's going to do. And I just want some more Gangsta Gibbs, man. That was a good verse.
I gotta check that out.
Yeah, man. Raw Gangsta Gibbs. If you love Practice Gangsta Gibbs, then you'll love this type of Gibbs.
All right.
Yeah, it's good.
He said, I'm
He's like, I do love that song.
You sold me.
Yeah, I do like
What
that.
were you
Yeah,
like
you got a
project?
little bit of that in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gentlemen, it was great to be back and kick it with y'all.
Always.
Hopefully y'all enjoyed this episode of Billboard Unfiltered, and we will see you guys next week.
Peace.